The Leadership Upgrade Podcast. Real conversations, practical insights, helping you move past your leadership limitations to build an engaged and productive culture at home, in the workplace, and in the community. With Steve McNamara from Steve Mac Media and international best-selling author and leadership coach, Michael Rowell.
Welcome to the Leadership Upgrade Podcast, the show for leaders, managers and change makers who want to lift their performance, culture and impact across their organisations. I'm your host Michael Rowell, and today we're continuing our Local Government Leaders series, and we're calling this episode The Power of Vision, how Karratha was transformed into Australia's most livable regional community. And to help us unpack that story, we're joined by our very special guest, the very person who helped lead it, former CEO of the City of Karratha, Chris Adams. Chris spent 15 years guiding one of the most ambitious regional transformations in Australian local government history, where the council vision went beyond traditional roads, rates and rubbish to tackle livability, identity and long-term sustainability. Under his leadership, the community didn't just grow, it flourished. Resident surveys showed the number of people planning to leave within 2 years dropped from 48% to below 16%. That's not just strategy, that's vision in action. So we'll be identifying the critical keys that leaders in any organisation can take from that, and we'll also be making available our free guide called the Vision Engine that links vision with measurable strategy and daily actions. Chris is currently CEO to Catalina Regional Council and has been since 2022, where he has overseen the development of a 2,500 lot residential estate in Perth. He's also the founding director of New Harmony Trading, which provides business and management consultancy and strategic planning to local government. Chris, welcome to the podcast. So good to have you here.
Good day, Michael. How are you? Good to be here.
And perhaps you could provide us with a snapshot of what happened in your tenure in the City of Karratha. What was it like when you arrived, and what was it like when you left? And then we can unpack the part that vision played in that journey.
Well, I guess I've been in and around local government for 30 plus years and been a CEO of local governments for 20 years. And I'd probably been a CEO for about a decade when I came to Karratha. Now, I will say Karratha's my hometown. I grew up there as a kid. And I was born in the City of Karratha, and I probably said I'd never do another local government CEO gig. And then the opportunity came to be CEO of my hometown. And I thought, well, you don't get many chances to do that. So I jumped both feet into the deep end of the pool and had a crack at it. I think it's fair to say the City of Karratha has been a community that has gone through its ups and downs over time because of the mining sector boom-bust cycle sort of thing. And when I started in 2012, 2013, it was probably coming off a fairly significant period of growth, and there was a little bit of a slump in the market, but we were just entering into that next phase of China-led growth, where China was going nuts for iron ore, and that was driving a whole bunch of pressure for services, facilities, people, and resources coming out of the Pilbara. So I probably joined at a really opportune time where there was a lot of activity, a lot of positivity in the town, and we try to harness that positivity and activity to lead fundamental change in the town. And that change was, you can see in physical outcomes, like there's lots of shiny new buildings that have been built and lots of new services that are available. But I think a lot of the change is about the way people feel about the town and about there's more people who feel like it's home. And that's been a real legacy, I guess, of the work that's been done over the last 15 years in that community.
Yeah, fantastic. So what were some of the tangible things that you kind of were milestones throughout that time, Chris, when you talked about some of the buildings that were built? Were there other kind of key milestones that occurred during that time?
I guess what we looked at is we wanted to become a place where people want to live. And we asked people, why aren't they living there and what's missing? And so we really focused on some of those facilities and services. So, and it wasn't always like traditional local government facilities and services. So people were leaving because of education. People were leaving because of health services. People were leaving because of lack of sense of community and lack of opportunity, whether it's in arts or sport or whatever it was. So we identified those things, and then we started working on with partners. I really want to stress it was with partners. It's not all about the local government. Around what can we do to change this dynamic? What can we do to change this dialogue out there and improve the quality of those services and facilities? So if you drove into Karratha now, the CBD is fundamentally changed. It's a different CBD. It used to be one-storey, big old-fashioned shopping centre. Now you drive in, there's 7-storey, 9-storey apartment blocks in the middle of town. There's cafes, restaurants, bars, all an activated CBD. There's a $65 million sports hub. There's a $50 million art centre. There's a whole range of things that have been built that just have changed the look and feel of the town.
So talk to me about this concept of vision, and where did these kind of material changes come from? Were they birthed out of a vision that you had for the place, or that you formed with your leadership team, or where did all these things come from? Did they just sort of appear as you went along, or were they specific targets that you were going for, or things that you wanted to bring into the Shire to really kind of play a part in the vision of where you wanted the place to grow to?
So I guess I've always been a bit of a sceptic when it comes to having a vision previously to this job. So here we are on a podcast talking about the power of visions. And up until probably my time at Karratha, I just thought, we're just local governments. We're all doing the same thing. We don't need a vision. But how wrong was I? I think the vision statement, I'm a real convert, and the need to have a strong and clear vision became really apparent to me through the process. I guess how it came about in Karratha, we were having our standard, councillor and executive team love-in, where everyone's away for a 2-day sort of strategic planning session. We're going to rewrite our documents, and I'd probably been on board for 18 months or so, and we're up in a place called Wind Creek Hotel, which is halfway between Port Hedland and Karratha, in the middle of nowhere, running this session. And we'd been hard at it for a day, and I'd organised a nighttime session. I thought, look, I need to make this a little bit fun. So I went back to my room, and we hadn't done the vision part yet, even though we'd been heavy into the budget and financial stuff. We hadn't really touched on the vision stuff. And I pulled out our vision at the time, and it was the usual long wordy thing that no one really knew what it was. And I thought, geez, I wonder how many of our executive team and councillors know what our vision is. And I thought, I wonder who's doing it well out there. Who's doing this vision bit right? So I pulled out my laptop and I went to 10 of our neighbouring local governments and local governments from around Australia that I knew of, and I pulled out their visions. And I wrote up a little exercise that said, here's a vision statement, and you try to join the dots. Which vision aligns with which community? And I found that most communities' visions are a bunch of words that don't actually mean anything. And ours at the City of Karratha was the same. It was long, it was wordy, it said all the usual guff, but it didn't present a distinct plan or distinct purpose for what we were there to achieve. I actually listed down in that 10 our vision and with our name next to it, and it was fair to say most people in the room couldn't link our vision to our organisation.
Really? Wow.
So,
yeah.
So we sat down and said, well, what are we actually here to do? Look, we've just been doing this budget thing where we're trying to work out what we're spending our money on, but why are we actually doing this? What are we actually trying to achieve here?
And can I ask, what was the mood in the room at that stage? Because obviously that was a bit of a confronting kind of situation for everyone.
It was. I think the timing of it was good. We did it after dinner, so everyone was sort of in a fairly jovial sort of mood, and we then made a bit of a game out of it. To say, we haven't got it right, and people formed up and had to write their own vision, and they had to convince others around the room why their vision was the best, and then we had that debate process, which was really quite fun to do. So the process we use, I'm not saying it's right for every organisation, is everyone wrote their own vision, then they had to join up with somebody else, and those two people then had to agree on what their vision was, and then they joined up with another two people, and they had to agree, and we sort of folded it up to get to the final vision. But when you tend to do that, I put the restriction was the vision has to be memorable. We didn't want to be like everyone else's vision, which was just a bunch of words that nobody ever remembered once they walked out of the room.
Right.
So based on that thing, the councillors and the executive around the room said, Karratha wants to be Australia's most livable regional city. Right? And that was a pretty bold statement to be having. There's lots of livable places around, but that's what we were here to achieve.
So that was a kind of a group vision that where that sort of formed?
Yeah, so the group sort of bought into it, and they basically said, no, we agree with that. There's always a few dissenters along the way, but in the end they said, no, we're comfortable with that, and that's a vision that we all believe in and we all want to get behind. So that was a really interesting starting point to actually have that very simple statement to be Australia's most livable regional city. So that's the easy bit, writing it down. But I guess the tough bit is, how do you actually transform those few nice little words into action?
And I think it's really interesting that you wrote that down, because obviously, like you say, that's the easy bit. And I guess that's the powers of vision, is that you can live in this world of what you would like to see. And at that stage, as you're crafting your vision, you don't have to have any evidence that that's actually going to happen, or that it's actually there in place, but you're creating this place in your mind that is a preferred reality into the future. But at that point in time, there's nothing to support that will actually happen, but there's also nothing to say that it won't. So it's almost like, as you're talking, I can see that you're creating this preferred reality you'd like to move towards. And at that stage, you're moving beyond all the limitations that you currently live with in your current situation, and all the reasons that are there to say that can never happen, and all the reasons and objections, even in your own mind, to say, oh, here's why we can't get there. But as soon as you start to craft that vision, then all of a sudden you're developing something that's creating a momentum and an energy and a focus for you and your people to start to go, well, next step is, I guess, how do we get to that place that we've just talked about that's currently not where we're at? So we've got sort of where we are today's reality and where we'd like to be in tomorrow's preferred future. What was the next part of sort of the journey after you established that vision of where you wanted to get to?
Well, first of all, you're 100% correct. Some people, when we came out and said it, said that's a ridiculous stretch target. You'll never be there. But at the other end, people said, "What do you mean? We're already the most livable regional city." So it depends on which perspective you're coming from. It's like, well, that's what we.
Were these people from within your close leadership group?
Many of them were councillors who just loved the community they're in. They said, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I don't know what you mean. It is the best community.
Right.
So for them, it wasn't pushing far enough. But I guess the vision, Australia's most livable regional community, well, what does that really mean? So we had to define, what's livability mean for us? And so it was, well, for us, it was, well, livability, very, very simply, means people want to live there.
Right.
And so we started measuring who wants to live here, how long have people lived here, are they planning on leaving or are they planning on staying? And if they are planning on leaving, why? And what are the issues that are affecting their decision to stay or go?
They're big questions.
Yeah. So we started essentially benchmarking where we were at. So we ran a community survey that identified what's important to you, how important are these services, and then how well are they being provided in our community, and what's the gap between the two. Now, most communities do this sort of stuff, do these surveys. We really lived and died by the results. And what we tried to make sure was, okay, education is a massive priority in the community. We'd score a score of, say, 84, and the perception was education was a 55. There was a big, big gap.
Right.
Righto. How do we fix that gap? What do we do? Now, education is not a local government issue, but we started working with the providers, working with the state government, working with the resource industry, who are a lot of the players in the region about, well, your staff are leaving because of the education in town. What can we collectively do to try to improve the education options and education opportunities in the community? So that's just one example, but we worked on what are the critical issues to improve the sense of, I like this place and I want to stay. And that framed the whole dialogue within the council, but it also fed right the way through the strategic documents down into our budget decisions. So It wasn't, the budget was essentially rewritten to reflect, let's focus on what's important, what makes the place more livable, what makes us the most livable regional city.
So, Chris, you mentioned a really interesting aspect there around measures, and it's an interesting topic because when we talk about vision, we often talk about, it's a bit esoteric. It's a bit, as you said at the start there, it's a bit out there. It's kind of maybe airy-fairy to some people and that sort of thing. What was the role of placing some measures on your vision, and how did that either help or hinder your progress in moving your vision forward?
Yeah. So, as I said, we ran an annual community survey to identify what the community thought was important. But one of the critical questions, the question I went to every year when the survey results came back in, was what we called the intentions to stay piece, which was how long do you intend to stay in the community? And when we started, only 12%, I think we said 18% before, but I went back and checked, only 12% of the community said they had no intentions to leave.
Really?
And for a whole range of reasons why they had no intention. But only 12% of people, so but over a 10-year period, that rose from 12% to well over 43, 44% of people saying, I have no intentions to leave the community. So what that did is that it created that sense of place, and we saw that as a real measure that the community was getting more and more livable. But it's a result. So the results did go up and down over time. They weren't just a linear, we got better every year. And so we used all the sort of other questions in the survey to determine, well, if we did take a small backward step, why? What's happened in the last 12 that's meant that we're not as livable and not as attractive place for people to stay? And sometimes that was within our control, and other times it wasn't.
Yeah, and I guess by the same token, if it went up, you'd be able to say, why was the positive impact?
Definitely. And those men, like, I can tell you that if you ask, there's 400 plus staff at the City of Karratha, if you ask them what the vision is, most would be able to spit it out straight away at you, because it became ingrained in what we did. We talked about it all the time. We lived it. So if you were the guy who's out in the mower mowing the grass, he may not know it straight away, but if you said, have you heard of that we're trying to be Australia's most livable regional city, he'd say 100%.
Really? Wow.
Everyone knew of it. And we always try to link what they were doing back to the vision. Right? What you're doing is helping us improve our public open space and improve our sporting facilities. And because of that, people are more likely to like living here, and trying to link every job back to the vision.
So that's a really interesting point. So how did that happen, and how did your vision from, that meeting that you had at your planning time, how did that cascade through the organisation? Did you personally go to every meeting, at every depot, at every toolbox, at every kind of team leader group meeting, and go, here's our vision? Or did you start to cascade that through layers in the organisation and embed it into the next level and the next level?
A bit of both, to be frank. There wasn't one strategy. So There was an element of going around to every single workplace, and myself and the executive team talking about, this is what we're here to do, this is how we're doing it, and this is why it's important to us. We embedded it structurally within the organisation, so it became one of my performance indicators as the CEO. The result of how many people are planning on leaving affected my pay rise, or whether it was seen to be a good job, and therefore I fed that back down into my executive team, and it was written into the KPIs across the organisation. So it would become a structural piece of what we did. But it also just became, you needed those champions. And the executive team were the champions of the vision. They believed in the vision. They worked hard on making sure others understood why it was our vision, because there were cynics out there. There were people who said, we'll never be Australia's most livable regional city. Full of cyclones, it's hot, there's flies, we're 1,600 kilometres away from Perth. It's never going to be Australia's most livable regional city. And say, look, we understand you don't think it is now, but our job is to try to get there. And how can we work with you do those small things, those little one percenters that help us, get towards that vision.
And were the champions of the vision, were they always from your sort of executive team, or did you have other champions at other levels in the organisation?
Like in every organisation, some people love this sort of stuff and some people are cynics, like I used to be. So it's about grabbing those people who love it and really harnessing their energy. And we also harness the energy of some like-minded individuals in the community, some key people who we thought were critical to driving some outcomes. So the senior sergeant of police, we got them involved. We got the local principals of the high school engaged, the general managers of the mining companies. We talked them through what we were trying to achieve and how we were trying to achieve it. The key bureaucrats within key government, state government agency departments, got them working, right, this is what we're trying to achieve. Here's how we're trying to achieve it. How can we work with you? And probably just as importantly, why it's important for them. And the whole, WIFM principle. So all good to go and speak to the local economic development agency and say, this is what we're trying to achieve. But when you put it back to this is why it's going to be good for you. So we were dealing with oil and gas companies and mining companies and talking about the local community vision. And most companies would say, so it's not helping my production. But if you can go back and say, we know that you're losing staff and that every time you lose a staff member, it costs you $90,000 to bring someone new on board and train them up and get them skills and the like. If we can help you with your staff attraction and retention, it works for you and it works for us. And so it was about identifying what's in it for those partners and getting a whole range of advocates speaking the same language.
So you've got external stakeholders in the community who you're actively engaging in the council vision and sort of almost bringing in as partners of the council vision, even though they're not part of the council organisation.
100%. Yeah, it's about working with everybody to say this is, yes, it's the council's vision, but it's actually the community's vision. It's what we're trying to deliver for the community. And this is a community that you're a key part of. So we'd love to work with you. And working with them doesn't necessarily then mean them opening their checkbook. There's other ways that they can work with us. And it's about, working with people to try to spread the word that we're actually here to try to be not just do roads, rates and rubbish. We're here to make a difference.
Yeah, powerful. And so you mentioned that you're a local to the area and probably grew up playing a whole bunch of sports there as a kid and that sort of thing. How much do you think this idea that vision sort of is birthed out of almost like a bit of an agitation to see things change? So we look throughout history and we see people like Martin Luther King Jr. who had this vision that something's got to change in our society because it's just not right. And then that birthed this whole movement that sort of swept the nation that he really pioneered and drove. And how much of that do you think was kind of part of this vision coming forward around people looking around and going, we're just not happy with this cycle that we see happening or this current standard and we want to change it. We're going to almost sort of draw a line in the sand. We're going to make a stand and we're going to say, we're going to see something change in our environment and in our community. Do you think that was a part of this birthing of this vision?
Yeah, well, I don't profess to be anywhere near as good as Martin Luther King, but I guess what we identified was there was an appetite for change in the community,
right.
And that there was an underlying piece of we want things to be better, and I think most communities have got that, and the vision tried to articulate that. When I did that piece of work at the Wim Creek Hotel, sitting around in my little donga, I really identified the vision needs to be something that's memorable, repeatable, and something that people can grab hold of. Now, I think the best visions, like Martin Luther's I Have a Dream sort of statements, are controversial. Some people don't like them. Some people think it's crazy. But if you read out 10 local government visions at the moment, they're nebulous, largely. They just say the same stuff.
Right.
And they don't paint that picture. and they don't paint that sort of stretch target of this is what we're here to be.
So let me jump in there and ask you, do you think you can develop a powerful vision that has an impact on your local community environment if you're not connected emotionally or relationally to that place or that purpose? If you're just appointed to a role?
I think me being a local and
Mm-hmm.
many of my executive team having been working for the City of Karratha for an extended period of time was a positive. We had councillors who weren't fly-by-nighters. They were largely local business owners, and they had a passion for change and a willingness to make hard decisions. So some of the councillors, some of the very best councillors, got voted out along the way because they basically lived by the sword and died by the sword, where they said, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do, despite sometimes the community at the time not agreeing to it.
Wow.
And it cost them their political seats.
So they paid a
and it was
price
tough.
for pursuing the vision.
Yeah. So
if
you have a look at
as you were at risk of doing, if you sort of link it to your KPIs,
for sure.
you're going to be in the same boat.
There's tough times too, because I was a local and people walking down the local Woolies supermarket and people pulling you aside saying, what the hell are you doing? I'll give you some examples. We decided that the CBD needed to fundamentally change its structure. The CBD, the key element of our CBD was an old-fashioned shopping centre with a moat of car parking around it, a big black car park around it. It was not activated. There was nothing happening in the CBD. And the town's 50-year-old swimming pool was near the CBD that was only open between 8 and 5 o'clock. Right. So after 5 p.m, the CBD was dead. So we said, we need to get people into our CBD. And so one of the key things we did is we closed our local swimming pool. Wow. And we moved the swimming pool out of the CBD into another area. We built a fantastic new sports facility, the Karratha Leisureplex.
But it's disruption, it's change, it's intervention.
And people were saying, I was there, I helped build it, I helped fundraise, and now you're closing this down.
Yeah.
But we built a 4-story office block and apartments where the town swimming pool used to be, with cafes, restaurant and bars underneath it. We worked with the state government and property developers to build 250 apartments in the CBD, 9 stories tall. So we went from a space where I always call it the heads on pillow strategy. When I started, there was no one who put a head on a pillow at night within 400 metres of the CBD.
Wow.
By the time I left, we had 1,500 people putting a head on a pillow within 400 metres of the CBD. So you get 1,500 people living within 400 metres of CBD. All of a sudden, you get coffee shops, you get restaurants, you get bars, you get cafes opening up. You get the ability to activate an area because people live in the CBD. This is 1,500 kilometres north of Perth. And the idea of having a 9-story apartment block in your town is, no way, Barleys, we're not doing
different.
That.
Yeah, that's revolutionary.
Yeah. So not everyone loved it. Not everyone loved the vision at all.
Yeah. So there's an element of what I'm hearing is you've got to have an element of conviction about you if you want to pursue a vision that's a big vision, and you've got to have some courage to pursue it, or because it's potentially going to cost you. And how much do you believe in it to go through the pain to see it come to pass?
Yeah, I think I was lucky enough that I'd been a CEO for a relatively long period of time before taking on the Karratha job. I wanted to make a difference. I've always tried to be, I always talk about the GSD attitude, which is a getting stuff done attitude. I always look at try to find a way to make things happen rather than stop things.
Right.
And so I really wanted to make a difference. Being my hometown helped, but I also was willing to, I guess, like I said, live by the sword and die by the sword. If the community or the council didn't like what I was doing, that's okay. But I was willing to have a crack. And the council did like what I was doing, and they kept me there. I left on really, really good terms. And I will say what I'm pleased they've just gone through a major community planning exercise. Not that I've been gone 3 years now, and they went through a major community planning exercise to redevelop all their strategic planning documents. And the City of Karratha's vision today is to be Australia's most livable regional city.
Wow.
The vision lives on. And that's with a brand new council, brand new executive team, brand new CEO. The vision has remained the same.
There's some legacy there. So looking back, Chris, what's the thing you're most proud about your role as CEO in the City of Karratha?
I'm lucky enough that I've worked in lots of communities in Victoria and WA, and I have seen change in many communities I've worked in. Karratha is where and the City of Karratha is my hometown. It's where I grew up. I guess there's no building or program or facility that I'm the most proud of. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that there's more passion in the town, and there's more people who are proud to call the place home. And there's measures to demonstrate that. But I think we were fairly lucky when we started, because when people weren't planning to stay, it's actually easier to implement change because there's not as many, I call them, there's not as many crazies out there. Not as many people who want to complain about what you're trying to do all the time. Now, it's almost a badge of honour that when City of Karratha is trying to do something now, people are objecting.
They're invested.
They're invested. This is my town. I want to have a say. Where early on in the piece, we got a little bit of it, but we basically there wasn't a lot of objection because people didn't own it. But now people are invested. They feel like this is my home. There's more intergenerational families living there. There's history. There's legacy. There's a sense of place. So, look, it's not perfect, but there's definitely been improvement.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, congratulations on all you've done and achieved during your tenure at the City of Karratha. Amazing effort, and obviously the legacy's living on there. You've now taken that experience into your own consultancy. Tell us a bit about that and what you're doing and how people can get in touch with you.
I'm still working in local government, but I'm also working with the commercial sector. I'm really passionate about trying to grow local government's business revenues and grow partnership opportunities in local governments. So myself and my wife have set up New Harmony Trading. We're working with local governments, resource sector companies, commercial enterprises around how they can work together, how local governments can deliver quality planning documents that I'm talking about, so the strategic planning documents, and linking those back down through CEO KPIs and organisational outcomes. But I'm also working with local governments on some pretty significant business opportunities around how can they grow businesses in their community, even by investing local government dollars to help achieve their strategic outcomes. So a whole range of different clients. I'm in a lucky enough position that I can kind of pick and choose who I work with, and I work with good people on good projects, but I'm always interested in finding something a bit new and exciting. Always keen to work with someone who wants to make a difference. So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, so the name of your business again is?
New Harmony Trading. So if you want to contact me, it's Chris at New Harmony Trading, that's all one word, .com.au.
Fantastic. We'll put that in our show notes so people can access that. Thanks, Chris. And you mentioned some strategic planning documents. You've had a look at what we mentioned earlier in the piece was the Vision Engine, which was a guide and a workbook around developing and planning your own vision and how to bring that into effect. And it's consisting of 8 different parts. We've got clarity, connection, continuity, community, consistency, conviction, capability, and courage, which we talked a little bit about there. Any thoughts on that as a guide that might be able to help people plan and implement their vision?
Look, I think well done to yourself to developing that document. From my perspective, it would have been handy to have that 10 or 15 years ago because we kind of flew by the seat of our pants a little bit. I'd like to think that a lot of the work we've done does meet all of those 8 C's, and I think you're right. If you can go and almost have that as a checklist to write, how do we actually develop and operate our organisation, our vision, with those 8 sort of ingredients? That's a great little reference point for your organisation. And I think every organisation should be having a very clear vision. Whether, like I said, I'm doing property development now, and even our property development is very clear about what we're trying to achieve.
You've become a vision convert.
100%. Like as I said, I was a mid-level manager and executive member in some largish organisations, and I used to roll my eyes when we'd sit down and do strategic planning, and I say, let's get to the nuts and bolts of what we're going to do.
Yeah. But, what are we going to do?
Yeah, so I've definitely changed. I will say that one of the things that people do mess up a lot is the difference between mission and vision. And people cross over both of those. The vision is that, in my view, the vision is where do we want to be? What's our nirvana? What is perfect for us? And the mission is how we're going to do it. And people get the nirvana and the how mixed up, and they try to blend it all together. And visions are written by committee, and therefore everyone's buzzword has to be put in it. So I think you just really need to focus on what is your nirvana, what do you want to be. And my personal view is keep your vision short, less than 10 words, so it's memorable. So that's part of the C's you talked about, the clarity piece. It's got to be clear, easily to communicate, easily for people to commit to. If it's a paragraph long, what's the point?
Too much. My final question to you, Chris, was going to be what's the one piece of advice you'd give to anyone looking to build a genuine vision, but I feel like you've just answered it unless there's something else you'd like to add to that.
I guess my advice is visions need to be owned and no good just having a vision that's on a piece of paper that you've ticked that box and moved on. Develop a vision that at least the top down believes in, and ideally the bottom up believes in as well. So take some time to work with people to develop that vision. Keep it short, keep it simple, keep it aspirational, but then grab hold of it, run with it. No good just having it there and thinking, we've done that, let's charge off and do the real business. That is the real business. The vision is what you're there to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's great insights and wisdom, and well done again on all you've achieved in your time at the City of Karratha and all your other local government involvement. If you'd like to contact Chris, you can head to our website, www.leadershipupgrade.org, where you can grab his contact details. You can grab a copy of the free download, the Vision Engine template that we just talked about. And thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership Upgrade Local Government Leaders Series podcast. And remember, you can send us your questions and comments on today's or other shows. If you have issues for us to unpack or ideas you'd like us to talk about, just let us know. Drop us a line. If you have any suitable guests that you'd like us to consider, please also send those through to us. On behalf of myself and Chris, thanks for joining us for this episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next edition of the Leadership Upgrade podcast.
Thanks for joining us on the Leadership Upgrade podcast. For more leadership resources, training and coaching support, visit www.leadershipupgrade.org. Until next time, whether you're at home, in the workplace or in the community, keep leading.